Shalom, party people, and welcome to the 12th Sea. Scouting in the Woods over on Instagram asks a multifaceted question. What is your favorite verse and book in the Bible and why? Prepping videos and tips. Are we going to get any of those in the foreseeable future? What is next for the fitness journey? And best and worst lessons that I've learned, and my understanding of that part of the question is like just in life in general. So take this one step at a time. What is your favorite verse and book in the Bible and why? My favorite verse in the Bible really throws a lot of people for a loop. Jeremiah 17:9. For the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? It's a reminder for me. I read that verse and I intentionally insert myself into that verse. And instead of the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked, who can know it? A lot of times I read it to myself as my heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked, who can know it? With that, it's a reminder to me of who I can be if I don't submit to Messiah. I have a lot of false humility. A really, really easy way to manipulate me is to praise me for work that's done that usually isn't seen. I do my very best to not trumpet my accomplishments, to not trumpet the things that I'm doing for the kingdom. And when people see that and praise me, I have to be very careful because, like, on grand scheme of things, do people need an attaboy every once in a while? Like, yeah, sure. But I really, really let those attaboys go to my head and prop myself up. And it very quickly goes from doing the right thing to, yeah, we did the right thing. It's cool. Yeah, look at me. And you want to bolster me up, build up my pride in a very subtle way. So that's something that I seriously have to be careful of. And that constant reminder of my heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. It starts with something good and then shift the glory from who it's supposed to go to me. And then it gets toxic very, very fast. So I like having that verse as a constant reminder in my life that despite my most noble intentions, I'm very, very prone to allowing myself to build up a sense of pride in a way that from the outside, people would mistake as humility. And to some people, that's a very foreign concept. So for what it's worth, I have got to be careful in pride and humility for myself. And it can't be a false sense of humility. It can't be a, oh yeah, it was no big deal. Thanks. I really don't like being singled out for these kind of things. If you see me doing that, it's 100% pride on my part because I'm trying to shove it off in a very gracious way. But it's really immediately going straight to my ego. Because then usually the response is, oh, you're so humble about it. So a genuine response from me when people are giving me the attaboy and where it's not going to my heart is, thank you, I really appreciate your kind words, and then move on. If I let it dwell for any real amount of time, it's a pride issue for me. So books of the Bible that are my favorite. Man, that's a tricky question. I don't know that I have one favorite book in the Bible. I've definitely been spending more time in Torah, and I've been learning substantially more just by going back and spending time in what I used to consider flyover territory in the Bible. So first 5 books, specifically, there's way more to the book of Leviticus than a lot of people think. And it's just because people see it and see things that they're like, oh, that's weird, or how does that apply, or, you know, all these things. And so they either ignore it or just outright reject. It's like, that's archaic. Spending time in harder to comprehend books of the Bible, harder to put into action books of the Bible, has really brought a lot of value to my life. So I would say I've been spending a lot more time in Torah, and I have seen things in Scripture that tie in so many other places that I wouldn't have seen if I didn't pay attention in those books. Gospel-wise, I really like the book of Matthew. I like all 4 Gospels, but book of Matthew, I just like. If one of the 4 Gospels is going to in my Bible, Matthew tends to be a default. And I think the reason why I like Matthew so much is Matthew is a lot of sermons directly from the Messiah. And I had a pastor growing up who was a pretty good speaker and quality, substantive, theology-heavy teaching. And so that just resonates with me. Mark is really good for the practical. Luke is very good for, you know, down-to-earth teaching. And John is really good for, I guess, your overarching core theology is really good for that. And they're all good for various good things. I just like Matthew, and it's not that I don't like the other 4 Gospels, it's just the one that I tend to spend the most time in recently. Really like the book of Acts, and I think a lot of people just have a fascination with the book of Acts, just because you're getting to see the church unfold in that first century, and it's like, hey, what's this going to look like? The book of Judges, and, you know, everyone's always like, oh, I like Judges for the stories. It's like, yeah, I do too, but I like Judges for seeing the character flaws in people who, you know, as kids, if you grew up in any facet of the church where you heard stories all the time, you always heard about how cool these guys were, but you never really spent much time thinking about their flaws. And I like seeing how the Father uses broken people to accomplish his will. And I think the book of Judges does a very, very good job of that. So for that, what it's worth. And then Proverbs. I think spending more time in Proverbs, doing the proverb that lines up with the calendar day of the month. Since there's 31 Proverbs, you can potentially do 1 proverb per day in a 31-day month. I like that. And it's something that the months that I'm really consistent with it are always really good. And the months that I'm not consistent with it, I'm always wishing, hey, let's, you know, go back and spend more time in this. So Proverbs is one of those books that you can go back to daily, you can go back to weekly, monthly, yearly, and you're always going to glean something new out of. So I'm digging Proverbs for that reason. So definitely top 4 books right there, with the caveat of Torah being 5 more. Prepping videos, maybe. I think there's enough really quality prepper channels out there that are delivering good prepper content that I'm just kind of fine with my videos dancing around that aspect and not actually going into, hey, this is how you pack a bug out bag. Hey, this is how you use your bushcrafty knife for the things. This is how you filter water. You know, this is how you store food in quantity. Those types of videos, I'm not saying never. You know, I'm in my 2nd year of planting my garden. And if I were forward thinking like Palmetto Paratrooper, you know, and taking daily update photos of how my garden is growing, and, you know, focus on like a different section of the garden every day and rotate through over the course of a week or two. So that way, you know, you keep things interesting, and it's not just like, oh, hey, another picture of my onions growing. It's, hey, today I'm going to show you how my pepper plants are doing. Hey, you know, tomorrow I'm going to show you how my potatoes are doing, and like work your way through. So that way people are getting a interesting cycle. Maybe. Probably if I do it, I'd start doing that kind of stuff next year. I mean, if you're going to be watering your garden every day, you might as well be taking pictures, so that way you can go back and see the progress, because that was one of the things that I laughed at originally at 75 hard, but then as I started doing it, it's like, oh, hey, there's a reason I'm daily taking a progress photo. It may not amount to anything today versus tomorrow, but today versus 2 weeks from now, you're really going to see the differences in things. So worthwhile, I think that is there. The in general prepper content, maybe, but part of the reason why my channel does what it does is I see fitness as a severely neglected aspect of prepping. And, you know, stuff like running around in a plate carrier. A lot of people in the prepper community have this kind of stuff, but aren't actually using it. And if you gain nothing else from my channel, use what you have. Go actually get your stuff sweaty, dirty, muddy, bloody. Put it to good use, so that way you know whether or not it works. And that counts your faith too. So if I have a shift in content to where I can drive some of those things home a little bit better, yeah, maybe soon. But in general, I'm still going to try to have a fitness focused aspect, even if I'm not like the most fit dude out there. The goal is to get out there and sweat. So for what that's worth, that's probably going to be a core of this channel for as long as I'm doing this. What's next on your fitness journey? I really need to regain some speed. I'm a distance runner through and through, and my mile times are atrocious right now, to the point of I was easily sub 6 miles, or not sub 6 miles, I was easily sub 6 minutes per mile on, you know, 2, 3, and 4 mile runs for the longest time. And for a million reasons and excuses or lies, none of those reasons matter. What does matter is that I haven't been taking proper care of my hips and lower back, and I need to focus on regaining the mobility so that way I can regain the speed. Also, if I'm going to bulk at all, I would like to bulk more in my shoulders and in my arms. And it's an aspect of my fitness that, yes, I do some upper body stuff, but I don't do enough of that. So if there's a way for me to increase muscle mass a little bit, not a lot, but a reasonable noteworthy amount in my shoulders and my arms, and then regain my speed, that's something that I'm going to be focusing more and more on as this year continues to unfold. 4 cycles of 75 hard broke me. There's no nice way to say it. Just, I was broken at the end of the 4th cycle. Like, I limped across that finish line. So a couple months to recoup and then train for the ruckus. And then been trying to stay active, but also shifting in a new schedule at a new job, trying to figure out what my level of normalcy is before I can really go too much into that. And then, hey, all right, I've got my routines established. I know what normal is. It's time to focus on regaining some speed and increasing my muscle mass in my shoulders and my arms. So that's currently what's next on the fitness journey. Best and worst lessons that I've learned, without making this a 30-minute video because it very quickly could turn into that. Being uncomfortable has always been a challenge, and I think it's a challenge for a lot of people. Learning to be comfortable in situations where you are uncomfortable is hard. I think the best lesson has been learning to have uncomfortable conversations that are going to benefit in the long run. And specifically that boils down to the relationships that matter. If you have a relationship that matters, you need to get comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations. So that way, hey, here's something that we need to address it, boom, move on. Instead of, hey, let's dance around this issue for, I don't know, 5, 6, 10, 12, 14 weeks. And then it finally comes out in the wash because it's just a really, really hard conversation that you've been dancing around for way too long, and now it's a full-blown argument instead of addressing something when it comes up that is worth addressing. That was a hard lesson, and it's a lesson that I'm still learning, but I would say that my communication skills in many relationships in my life, including the relationship with my wife, is getting better, because we're both on the same page of, hey, we need to force some of these uncomfortable conversations so that way things can be healthy. That's also been with coworkers, that has also been with supervisors, that has also been with friends. Having some uncomfortable conversations has proven to deepen the relationships that matter. Worst lessons. You know, I had a really bad boss a few jobs ago, and that supervisor, I learned a lot of negative lessons. And it's the negative that like informs the positive. So I would say good for learning those things, but I had a supervisor who was just very, very inconsistent, where for 5 minutes he would try to be my best friend, and then for 5 minutes he would try to be the boss and lay down the law. And he would flip-flop and change his mind on literally everything. I would, hey boss, I need to get this done. What do you recommend doing so that way we operate above board? And he would give me an answer, and then literally the same day, I would get a lecture on why we weren't supposed to do that. Well, you just told me to do that, so which is it? Those kind of things really kind of helped formulate in my mind what kind of a supervisor I would like to be. Seeing, hey, I can't show up 5 minutes late, but he can show up 3 hours late. The hypocrisy in those things really kind of drove home, hey, your words matter, because people aren't going to take you seriously if your words and your actions aren't lining up. I got to see the long-term ramifications of that recently. And it's not that seeing those long-term ramifications in this guy justified anything for me. It's like, oh yeah, he finally got what was coming to him. It's like, no, it was really sad to see. It's like, hey, this is somebody who, for all of their faults, actually kind of enjoyed being around. And you can chalk that up to whatever you want, but it's like, hey, at the end of the day, for all of their flaws, this person was somebody who was worth having in your life. But in a major area of being inconsistent it made things really hard. And then seeing the long-term discipline that came down from his bosses to him. Oh, hey, yeah, that may have been a long time coming, but it was painful to watch. Seeing, okay, that's not the kind of person that I want to be, drove a lot of those things home. The consistency of you make a promise and you keep it. You tell somebody something and then you stick to it, unless it's, hey, I was wrong, and then actually admitting your mistake. And then this is how we're going to move forward. The entire book of Extreme Ownership. If you actually keep your word, if you are consistent the whole way through, if you admit when you were wrong and then do everything you can to make it right, those are the kinds of things that if I ever am somebody's real boss and not just, oh, hey, here's this, go do this, but all right, guys, this is what we're going to do today to get this accomplished. That level of being a supervisor, I would like to be consistent with the people that I manage. I would like to be honest and upfront with them. And I would like to admit my mistakes when they do happen. Those kind of things, I think, make for a better work environment. So, for what that's worth, Scouting in the Woods, I hope I answered your multifaceted question. Throw it down in the comments. I would really like to keep this discussion going on about books of the Bible, about fitness journey, about prepper stuff, for what that's worth. And also about the just positive and negative lessons in life. Go do hard things.